They're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great. Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody. Good morning. Happy Monday. We are off and rolling here. This is Off the Bench, presented by UDF. Justin Kinner, no Casey McAllister, Elliot Ruring, and Jacob Tissett. A little bit of a weird week because we have other projects going on with Chatterbox, of course, but excited to be with you guys. I hope you had a great weekend. Good morning. How are we, Jacob? The blood pressure coming down a bit. You doing good? Everything plugged in? We're off and rolling?
I think we are all good. I think everyone in the studio is all good, and that is always good news. You never know when Casey decides to fix his roof once a month. You never know how it's going to go in the studio, but here we are. We're off and rolling, just a little bit late, and if the chat, wants to blame me, that's fine, but I'm going to blame whoever unplugged the power for the audio.
No, it's a good morning. The sun is shining for the first time in 3 weeks, so it's good to see the old sun come back. I will say my drive to work is interesting because I drive right around the Miami River. It is all the way to the road. It is all the way to the road, as close to the road as you can get. So it is interesting watching that. I saw the Ohio River. I saw there's a dumpster floating down it this morning. I saw all kinds of weird things with this flooding. By my house, there's like a little road you take to get to my house. It is closed because it is completely underwater. So you have to go a different way home now for me as well. So the rain has made its point. We got it. We understand, Rain. You're in charge.
Well, I tell you what, we've all had pretty good weekends, it sounds like, but no one has had a worse weekend. Then let's start with MVP Joey Votto.
Oh, no.
Came into the studio today. MVP Joey Votto is officially done for. Super glue actually, there we go. He's missing a hand, but
okay.
he had a bad weekend. Let's see who else. Yes. I mean, how about this guy, Mr. Ken Griffey? Can't find his bat. He's missing an arm. A couple of his legs are missing. I don't know where the base is. The cleaning people did a good job cleaning, just not cleaning up the bobbleheads that they knocked all over the studio. I have no clue what's going on. But I tell you what, this one's more figurative than anything. It's literal and figurative. I can't think of a better example of explaining how broken Jake Fraley is than showing just how broke Jake Fraley actually is. Look at this. Jake Fraley is officially broken. But he does still have his cape.
That would make sense. I mean, maybe that version could hit the ball.
Yeah, maybe a little
field
bit.
The ball.
Or field it. Yep. Or do anything right.
Or run after it after he fails to field it.
Yeah, look, Jake Fraley, ball. Go get it. There we go. No.
Did someone over there smirk?
Yeah.
Someone in the corner smirked.
But we welcome you guys in again. I don't know why I took a drink in the middle of that, but Off the Bench. Presented by UDF. Again, Justin Kinner, Elliot Ruring, Jacob Tissett. A lot to get into today. Have a lot of Reds, of course. Look, I love that the Reds season's officially here, but you can only say that so many times until the Reds make you actually regret saying that I'm glad that Reds season is officially here. They did not get swept. They did score more than one run in a game a couple times throughout the weekend, so there's that positive side to it. They start a whole new series against a team that they've already lost a series to already. I mean, the positives will come eventually, right? Like, are we getting closer to the positives? I mean, maybe, hopefully.
Positives would be fun.
Positive? What? I mean, I think we've seen the positives. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it, what's left of it today. But it's, I mean, if you're out here looking for positives on April 7th after what we just witnessed, I think you're crazy.
Big extension in Major League Baseball for a big star. It makes you wonder when some of the stars for the Reds will be offered an extension or at least get those talks going. Apparently, one of the stars for the Reds there was negotiation talks with, and that star shut it down. So we'll talk about that coming up here around the corner as well. The Cincinnati Bearcats, a couple big new additions through the portal, but they lost one to the portal earlier today. I'm sure Elliot will jump on that coming up here shortly as well. So we have a lot to dive into. Happy Monday. It's going to be an interesting week. I know we don't have a show tomorrow and Wednesday, but let's get it all crammed in here today. So before we go do anything else, let's send it to Elliot for Elliot's Headlines.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's Headlines.
Whistle, whistle, whistle sound. College basketball. If you missed it, there were some games this weekend.
Yeah,
there were some games on Saturday.
They were terrible.
They were terrible. Florida was able to win against Auburn on Saturday night, 79-73, on the back of Walter Clayton Jr., who had 34 points. Back-to-back 30-point performances for him. They advanced into the championship game. And then Duke. Duke led by 6 with 30 seconds left and were unable to hold on. 70-67. Houston is the winner. They advance to the championship. And that game again tonight, set your alarms. You're going to go to bed, and then you're going to wake up, and then it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because at 9 o'clock, we'll see you there. At technically 8:50, but after, the anthem and whatever else they do before the game, it's going to be a 9 o'clock start. So
Yeah.
9 p.m., the national championship.
Yeah. All year I talked about Duke. Cooper Flagg's not that hateable. Con Knipple, Malawach, they're not that hateable. Shire doesn't have that Coach K feel. And that, really upset me all year long. But to see them blow it like that, it hit just the same. I mean, the jerseys still look the same.
Oh, yeah.
The hate might not be there the whole season, but to see them lose like that, it still felt really good.
Historic loss, an absolutely historic loss. I don't think, and I could be wrong with you guys, I didn't have even a shred of doubt that Duke was going to lose that game.
No.
Not for 1 second, up until the point where Cooper Flagg was called for the over-the-back foul. And that was, by the way, horrible. Outside of that foul call, I had not a single shred of doubt. So with like 15 seconds to go, there was no doubt in my mind that Duke was going to win that game. And then they eventually lost it, which is absolutely insane. But
This
good,
is
good for Houston.
Just to emphasize how little faith you had, this is the text you sent me about an hour after tip-off. So still a lot of time left in the game.
Uh-oh.
Quote, Houston died like a dog, a beautiful, beautiful dog. Turns out they're playing tonight.
Once I forget which player was the one who fouled Duke's inbounder. Yeah. Whenever that happened, I was like, all right, turn it off. Let's go to bed. But
JoJo Tuggle.
Clearly, there was some fight left. So good for them. Championship tonight, 8:50. See you guys there. There was another game yesterday afternoon.
That's right.
A big one.
Huge.
The Crown Championship between Nebraska and UCF. Nebraska is your champion. They hold up the Crown. I believe it was 77-66, the final score there. So the Crown has concluded. It's a shame. They really should have that as like the 11:30 game after the national championship going forward. But
11:30 would be like middle of the second half.
You're right. So how about 1 a.m.?
Yeah,
1 a.m. Put that at 1 a.m.
Funny nugget now, obvious first inaugural historic Crown.
Okay.
Nebraska, the first team to win it. They become the first team in NCAA history to win the Crown and the NIT.
Wow.
They also have the most tournament appearances without a win in the real tournament.
Wow. Good for them.
Yeah.
They're the postseason champs of tournaments you don't want to play in.
That's right.
They'll play in all the garbage ones. As Kinner mentioned, the Cincinnati Bearcats, they landed 2 recruits. Sincere Harris and Care Chris have committed to the University of Cincinnati. They appear to lose Dan Skillings as well. Dan Skillings announced this morning he will be entering the transfer portal. So you add 2, you lose 1. Fine by me. Going over to Major League Baseball, the Reds, as we've already talked about, they lose the first 3 series of the year. Woo! Brewers take 3 of 4, including yesterday's 8-2 win. Spencer Steer did hit his first home run of the season. I'm sure we'll see a lot of those. Spires and Mole, they give up a majority of the runs. They give up 7. Jabot gave up a solo shot in the 7th. So those are your 8 runs figured out there. The Reds are back at it tonight against the Giants. The Giants, 9:45 on the West Coast. The Giants' only loss this season has been to the Cincinnati Reds. It's an opening day rematch between Hunter Green and Logan Webb. Good luck. I'm sure the Reds are going to win. Psych. The Red Sox, they score 18 on Sunday night against the Cardinals, 18-7 the final score yesterday. The Angels, they cruise past the Guardians 6-2. The Rockies, they get one back against the Athletics 12-5. The Padres, they fought all the way back to win 8-7 over the Cubs. They trailed 7-3 after 2 innings. The Blue Jays, they fall to the Mets 2-1. The Phillies, they win in a thriller 8-7 over the Dodgers. But Blake Snell for the Dodgers also lands on the IL with shoulder inflammation. So Dodgers kind of lose 2 yesterday.
No depth on
Maybe
the
they
Dodgers.
could just DH him.
No depth. That's right. And
maybe
finally,
they could just DH Blake Snell for the rest of the season. Isn't that what you do with guys with banged up shoulders? Is that what you do?
That's what you do. Full-time DH, except if he's hurt. Pirates, they get a game back from the Yankees. They win 5-4. Still lose the series, but good for the Pirates and the Reds. Still in the basement. Heading over to the NHL, a little hockey talk. The Capitals, they lose 4-1 to the Islanders, but Ovechkin does pass the great one, Gretzky, to become the NHL's all-time leader in goals scored. He hit number 895 on a power play. So good for Ovechkin. Good.
Very cool that they played the same number of games as well. Exact same number of career games. Very ethical way to break a career record like that.
And he did say, I think it was, he had an open netter on Saturday. And he's like, you know what? We'll push it back. We're not going to score. We're going to do it the right way. So good for Ovechkin. And finally, you have the Women's National Championship. That took place yesterday. It was UConn who won it, 82-59. A dominating performance over South Carolina. Gino and Paigey buckets, they get their championship on her last game. So good for them, good for UConn, good for everybody except for the Cincinnati Reds.
Paige Beckers, Fudd, and Strong, the big 3 on UConn, combined for the most points ever scored for a trio through a men's or women's tournament.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that?
On a more sad note, but still cool surrounding this UConn team, this would have been Gigi Bryant's freshman year, and she was committed to UConn, or said she wanted to go to UConn, was one of the top recruits, so they did a lot of stuff for her after the game, had a jersey on the sidelines and some flowers and things along those lines. So it's always cool to see, that stuff last longer than, a calendar year or something like that, and have it still have some meaning.
Yeah, they shared a clip of Reggie Miller was trying to convince. It was an old clip of years ago when Reggie was trying to convince Kobe to get Gigi to commit to UCLA, and he said, "Look, she is just absolutely just locked on UConn. She is going to play for UConn. It's wild. I didn't even realize that this would have been her freshman season, but she would have won a national championship. And UConn again, Gino Auriemma, that's his 12th. Just when they say, hey, that program's taking a step or two back, just because hey they haven't won a national championship in a few years, they get that championship and they get it done. So." But yeah, that Gigi storyline, I didn't realize she would have been a freshman already. Also, because earlier you were doing the college basketball stuff, Elliot, and you said in the biggest game yesterday, you said the crown. I thought you were going to forget the women's national championship. So I'm very glad that we remembered to include the women's national championship in headlines. So congratulations to us. We didn't forget. So there you go. People are mad that they tipped it off at 3 o'clock. Credit Elliot. People are mad that they tipped it off at 3 o'clock. It's always tipped off at 3 o'clock. Why does it matter? People have to get mad.
I feel like 3 o'clock on Sunday is
vastly different.
Pretty close to prime time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of views, and I feel like that is a great slot.
Yeah, no, I have no issue with 3 o'clock on a Sunday. That's if the men's national championship played on Sunday, I'd want it to be at 3 o'clock.
Not at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever. Speaking of those 8, 9 o'clock start times, I mean, I don't know. I mean, good for Trace, good for whoever is going to be doing the post game tonight for the Reds. I mean, Chatterbox Reds, the post game edition, Nick Kirby, whether it's Craig, I don't know who's going to be on live tonight after the Reds game, but good for them. This is where you earn your money, is when you have to do those West Coast post game shows. 9:45 first pitch. Good for them. I will not be.
No, the Reds do really, really well on the West Coast, so it's usually a lot of wins.
Yeah, I guarantee I will not be watching that.
All right, this is Off the Bench. That was Elliot's Headlines. Again, the show brought to you by UDF. Justin Kinner, Elliot Ruring, Jacob Tissett with you here. Let's talk Reds when we come back. At the beginning, the Reds start losing and it starts snowballing. They're losing 1-0, and they lose the next night 1-0, and then what the hell? Third straight night losing 1-0. At that point, it became a little comical, and then they finally get that win, that bounce back win. They erupt for all these runs, and it's like, man, there's just no in between with them, right? It's no runs or double-digit runs. There's no in between. They avoided the sweep over the Brewers. We're going to talk about that. Now the confidence level not very high as they remain on the road on the West Coast. They got the Giants coming up. They don't return home until this coming up weekend. So we're going to talk about all of that and more when we come back. Plus, around the corner, which Reds player have you been most impressed with? Which one have you been most unimpressed with? We'll get to that coming up here shortly as well. This is Off the Bench presented by UDF. We'll be right back. Well, the Reds didn't get swept. So there's that. They scored they scored in a game over the weekend. So there's that. They did score a lot of runs in one particular game. So there's that. And then they lost by a lot of runs yesterday. So there's that. How we feel about the Reds, gentlemen, coming out of the weekend? The vibes weren't high heading in, and I don't think they're that great coming out. I still don't know who the hell this team is. I don't want to say bad because then that just basically disqualifies the rest of the season. So I don't want to go there yet. They're playing bad right now. That's what I'm at least trying to convince myself of at this point. How we feel about the Reds coming out of the weekend? They avoided the sweep, but they do lose the series. Their third straight series loss this season.
I think if you don't know who this Reds team is, then you're trying to convince yourself of something other than what we're seeing on the field. I think it's going to be like this all year long. And will there be hot stretches where the bats are better? Maybe we can rip off a bunch of wins? Sure, yeah, and that'll be great. But the bottom line for this Reds team with this roster, unless there's some kind of major midseason overhaul, which we've never seen here in Cincinnati, is we have a couple really good players if they're healthy and out there. And other than that, when it comes to bats in this lineup, it's not very good. And I don't think there's a lot of help coming. The fact that we keep seeing Jake Friedl out there and we keep seeing, Blake Dunn out there, Santiago Espinal hitting second against right-handed pitching. I just don't think there's an easy fix for this roster. And I think this team is trying their hardest, 10, 12 games into the season to tell you exactly who they are. They're a team who needs their pitching staff to hold the opposition's lineup to 1 or 2 runs. And even then, you're holding your breath and praying for a win. So I'm more worried that we do know who this Reds team is than we don't know who this Reds team is. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they continue to get better and improve and prove me wrong, and they're a competitive team, here sooner rather than later. But, you don't go 3 straight games 0-1, and I leave that convinced that you're going to be a competitive team. Even when you turn around, I know they win the game, right after, but they weren't competitive. They just weren't a competitive team in Milwaukee, and that's been the story for far too long now in terms of the Reds and the Brewers. And when you have a team that's been dominant in your division like Milwaukee, I can't convince myself that the Reds are going to be a contender in the division until they can go up to Milwaukee and play a competitive series. I'm not saying you got to win every single time you play those guys. They're good. I mean, they've won this division many years in a row, but you have to at least show that you belong on the same field. And for what feels like the fifth, sixth, seventh year in a row, it just didn't look that way.
Yeah, I'll say it, Justin. They're bad. No, they're bad. I wasn't going to say it last week because it was the opening week and I was trying to be positive. I'm happy to say that they're just bad. I mean, I watched that series this weekend. Disgusting effort. And it's like they're not even like I love Ellie De La Cruz, and I'm not saying anything about Ellie De La Cruz. Even Ellie, when the team's this bad around him, he can't save them. Like you can't rely on Ellie De La Cruz to come and bail 8 players out. Just not going to happen that way, you know. And that seems to be what it is. We got a right fielder who's walking to a ball that he misplayed and had it roll to the wall. Like it's fundamental stuff. It's the little stuff. It's the stuff that everybody said that Terry Francona was going to fix. Hasn't been fixed. I don't even know if it's been addressed at this point because it's been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible. When Jose Trevino is your leading hitter in average right now, it's going to be a tough year. It's going to be a very, very tough year. You can't rely on anybody in the lineup, not a single player. Ellie De La Cruz, you can pretty much be like, all right, if Ellie gets a hit, then he can hopefully steal 2 bags, and maybe somebody can hit a sac fly and bring him in. But outside of that, you're praying and you're just hoping. It's all you know. Nothing based on talent. It's just luck. If you can luck into a run, that's how they're going to score. Spencer Steer hit a home run. It's probably going to be the only home run he hits for the next 2 months. So whenever Hayes comes back up and Steer goes away, and I imagine we're not going to see Spencer Steer for quite some time when Hayes comes up. I'm frustrated. I'm very much frustrated. I'm not going to ask Carson Spires to go throw 7 innings scoreless baseball when the team can't score runs. There's nothing you can really say positive about the Reds. There's a couple players, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but it's about as horrible of a start as you could possibly imagine. It's a disaster. I mean, it's a complete and utter failure on Nick Kral's part. It's a failure on these players' parts. It's a joke. And here we are sitting and, you know, we've made it through 10 games, and I still see them. They're still on Twitter. It's only 10 games. It's only 3 series. It's only 4 series. It's only the first month. It's only the second month. And you just keep saying to yourself as if something's going to change. Jacob kind of said it. Nothing's changing. Nothing's going to change. This group of players isn't good enough to win baseball games. It's just flat out not. The lineup is terrible. I was listening to the Chatterbox Reds. When my guy Nick Kirby's getting beaten down by this team, you know we're in a tough spot. I was watching Kirby and Craig. I forget what night that was. I was watching some of the highlights when they were on this weekend, and it was, you know, the bottom half of the lineup. They can't hit. They don't hit. They don't get on base. There's no way for them to get on base, and you can't win games like that. You can have 5 Clayton Kershaws out there, and you're just not going to win if the offense is our lineup. Just impossible.
No, you're right. In fact, the one win that they did get, coincidentally enough, is when the bottom half of the order did contribute. When you know what I mean? Like they put up double-digit runs in Game 3 against the Brewers, and that was a lot of the bottom half of the order. And I think the big problem I have is I'm not one to let I hold the star players to a higher standard than I do everybody else, as we should. And I think we spend too much time beating up on the players we had question marks on coming into the season. I feel like we harp on them so much, like we hold them to a higher standard than Ellie and Matt McClain. But Matt McClain and Ellie De La Cruz, they stink. You guys stink right now. I'm mad at them. I'm just going to be blunt. I'm mad at them. Ellie, you brought up, Ellie, has to hold everyone up around him. Well, who's going to hold Ellie up? Because Ellie stinks. He has like 2 hits or 3 or whatever it is hits in his last 24 at bats. He stinks right now. And that's a problem. Like, I get it. And I made this comparison the other day. I know the one reason that we felt so bad for Joe Burrow throughout the 2024 NFL season is because he showed up, he did his job, and they lost games, not because of him, but because everyone didn't do theirs. Well, they're losing games right now because, yes, they're not getting contributions to the bottom half of the order, but Ellie stinks. Like, Ellie needs to get his head out of his ass, and he needs to start playing some baseball. We can't talk about, oh, man, the Reds aren't going to be able to afford him long term, and, oh, he's going to be a Dodger. The Dodgers don't want this version of Ellie De La Cruz. I don't want this version of Ellie De La Cruz. Ellie is better than this. We know he's better than this. We know Matt McClain's better than this. This team's losing games because, yes, they're not very deep. They're not very, they don't have a lot of talent up and down that lineup. But the talent that they do have in the lineup, they need to show up and do their damn jobs too, because that's the problem that I have. I could stomach watching the Reds, watching them do their jobs, and then get through the bad of watching the players that we know shouldn't be on this roster trying to stomach through their at-bats. But I don't get as upset when I'm watching Trevino not put the ball in play. I'm not getting as upset when we're watching guys like Friedl not contribute. We didn't want Friedl. I wasn't high on Friedl to begin with coming in. I didn't think it was a good thing that he was on the roster coming into the season. So why am I going to be upset that he's not contributing when we knew that was going to be a hole to begin with? What I'm tired of seeing is the strikeouts from Ellie De La Cruz, the errors on the field right now, the fact that he's not putting the ball in play, he's not stealing bases, he's not driving in runs, he's not hitting home runs, he's not putting the damn ball in play. I think I've said that already. So if you can't tell, I'm tired of the stars not contributing, because we could spend all day talking about the non-talent doing what they're supposed to, not contributing, because that's what we expected. I expect Ellie to show up. I expect Matt McClain to show up, and it would just be swell if they decided to do their damn job starting tonight in Game 1 against the Giants.
For the record, Matt McClain did, appear to get injured at some point along the way. It's my number one fear with Matt McClain.
I forgot about that, because then he came back. I forgot. You're right. He did, because he was scratched. There was like a little concern, and then he came back the next game and then out again. So I did forget about that one too. Stay healthy, dude.
And he's been out. He missed yesterday's game as well. So it's going to be a long year, man. It's just going to be a really brutally long year. I think Everett tweeted it out this weekend, and I saw it and I laughed. Thank God FanDuel offers the month-by-month payment package, because that's what this team is. They're a month-by-month team, and through 1 month, through 1 week, it's been a colossal disaster. And there's really, we can sit here and try to find positives, and one of the positives is playing tonight, our starting pitcher, Hunter Green. And the other starting pitchers have done an admirable job as well, outside of Carson Spires. So, there's a little bit to talk about in terms of positives, but the lineup's not close to being competitive. It's not a major league lineup. Jake Fraley, I love Jake Fraley. I love him. I think he's a good guy. I think he's been through a lot. I think he went through a lot last year. Whatever he went through last year was too much to overcome from a baseball standpoint, I think, because it's not a professional player right now. He is not a professional player right now. And I don't know if there's a way to fix that, because every out that he has is a weak pop-up or a weaker ground out. I think Austin Elmore tweeted it yesterday, and I agree. He can't hit it 250. He can't. No. I know he hit a double yesterday, but he can't hit a ball 300 feet. He just can't do it, not on a fly. So there has to be something done about that. Will Benson still continues to rake down in AAA. There is zero reason for him not to be on the team at this point. Whatever you think about Will Benson, when a player is that good down there, and we have guys up here that are this bad, there is no excuse for him not to be on the roster. I'm not saying Will Benson. I saw people getting mad at me this weekend. Oh, you think Will Benson's going to save? I don't know if Will Benson's going to save us, but I know this: Jake Fraley right now is not. Right. Jake Fraley cannot play with the Reds as of this very second, because it's been a complete and utter joke so far. Just needs to be better all the way around. Outside of him, I look around the lineup and just trying to find anything that I can get my hands on. Santiago Espinal, I guess he's been okay, but Santiago Espinal when he's hitting 2, you're in deep trouble. Yeah, deep trouble if Santiago Espinal is hitting top 3 in your lineup, and that's where we are right now. Gavin Lux hasn't been good. Gavin Lux hasn't been good. I think he's hit a couple hard hit balls. He's hit a couple warning track balls. Unfortunately, those don't count. So, Gavin Lux.
Yesterday too that he's not an outfielder.
Oh yeah, I'm shocked that the second baseman can't play in left field.
I'm completely
fun, shocked.
Yeah, the fun thing about the Reds outfield is none of them are outfielders
except for TJ. I think TJ is.
TJ's good. TJ's good. Jake Fraley, he can't do anything out of baseball field. And then the other 2 guys that you're relying on the outfield, you're waiting until Steer gets back, and he's the one you're writing home about. His natural position is second base. We all know that. So I don't know what the plan is. I certainly agreed to a degree, Kinner. We put so much weight on those two guys in our lineup that they have to perform in order for this team to have any chance, and that's just where we're at. So I certainly agree. But the most frustrating thing for me out of this weekend is we're 12 games into this season, and Matt McClain's already out of the lineup.
Yeah.
Is this really what we're doing again? Elliot and I sat here before opening day and said, "Hey, go watch the team because." I don't know how long you're going to be able to watch this lineup for. These guys get hurt an awful lot, and that's something we're going to be concerned about going throughout this whole season. And here we are. And, one of two players, when you talk about the lineup that you're excited to watch, is already out. It's not a great place to be. Now, I mean, he came in and he hit in the first game he was scratched from, sent it to the warning track, looked like a good swing, solid contact, and then was scratched the next day. That's nightmare material. I mean, you can't have either of these guys in this Reds middle infield getting hurt and expecting this team to even tread water. So it's one thing for them not to be playing well. It's another thing for them not to be playing. And I think that's where my biggest level of concern comes in for Matt McClain is, I mean, here we are yet again, and he's not on the field. And that's just a very, very scary pattern.
All right, this is Off the Bench, presented by UDF. Justin Kinner, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on a Monday. Reaction coming out of the weekend. Again, the Reds dropped 3-4 against the Brewers. Obviously, they've lost their first three series of the season, and they get things rolling tonight against a team they lost to in the first series of the year, and they got the Giants. It's a late games for tonight and tomorrow, and then an afternoon one on Wednesday to close it out, and then they got the Pirates coming up around the corner, and they'll have them at home. So we'll step away for a few moments. Obviously, there's a lot of players that we just mentioned that we're kind of down on and disappointed on, but which player, which guy right now, as we are 3 series in, 10 games into the season, which player are you the most disappointed in at this point, 10 games in, and which player have you been the most impressed with? We'll get to all of that when we come back. More OTB when we return. All right, and we are back. It's interesting. So we're about to kind of share with you who we're the most disappointed with and who we're most impressed with. The Reds are 10 games into the season, only 152 more to go. And I can't imagine 152 more games of this. The good thing is guys, like the one thing, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Positive because it's the last thing I ever am considered as Mr. Positive, but at the same time, there are stretches where, I mean, you remember that 11 or 12 game losing streak last year where it seemed like it couldn't get any worse, and it got significantly better. Like they started, obviously they had a winning April, they had a winning May and June, but because they had that little 11 game losing streak, that's all we were living in was that little stretch of hell, obviously. they can turn this around. I think they will turn this around. The thing is, I don't know what turning it around means. I don't think that they're this bad. I'm not going to go anymore. I'm not going to crack these mics anymore and say that, hey, this team is good enough to win the division. Ellie, you brought up a good point earlier. How can we sit there and expect them to win this damn division when they can't even beat the team that's dominated this division for the last half decade in the Brewers? Like, that's a big ask. I think me especially, I've overlooked that. Like, oh yeah, I think they're good enough to win this division. How? You can't beat the Brewers. 11 straight series losses against the Brewers, and then you start looking at the team. They'll just be a team that's competing for the wild card. Do you guys see the teams? And I know you guys know this. The teams that are going to be competing for the wild card throughout the year. I don't care about wild card standings right now, but we all know the teams that are going to be competing for the wild card. It's going to be whether it's the Dodgers, whether it's the Padres, whether it's the Mets, whether it's the Giants, the team that the Reds are playing tonight that they've already lost to already. If the Brewers don't win the Central, it's going to be the Cubs that win the Central, which means you're going to be competing with the Brewers to get that final wild card spot. Like, the division is the easier of the two to punch your ticket to the postseason. And I'm not getting ahead of myself. I know it's only April, but the bottom line is you have to focus on the division. I don't care about the wild card. You have to be able to win your division, and they can't beat the Brewers, and that's frustrating. I do think that there's better baseball ahead for this team. I don't think it's significantly better. I don't know, but we've seen this team play at an even lower level in years past, and they found a way to turn it around, and I just think there's more talent and experience here. We'll see what happens. But as of right now, we are 10 games in. And the players that we've talked about, we've highlighted a lot of players who have been bad early. I already mentioned Ellie De La Cruz early, and that's mine as of now. The player that I'm most disappointed in, it is Ellie De La Cruz. And I think sometimes we put a force field around our superstar players and act like we got to blame everybody else because our superstar, he does what he's supposed to. I brought up the Joe Burrow example early. People got mad at me when I brought up the Joe Burrow turnover stuff, like late in games, but he would throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. But Kinner's bringing up the interception. I understand why that poked buttons and why that irritated people. You can't protect Ellie that way. Ellie's not going 4 for 5 with 7 RBIs and 2 home runs every single night. And Kinner's bringing up, but he struck out with the game on the line late, and that's why he's disappointed in Ellie. No, Ellie's not showing up at all. He's 3 for 24. He has struck out 7 times in that stretch. The Reds are 1-5 ever since they had that big explosion early in the season when they put up the 14 runs or whatever it was. They have it against the Rangers. Ellie's completely disappeared. He had that monster game in that game against the Rangers. He's completely disappeared. 3 for 24 with 7 strikeouts, all the errors, caught stealing. I mean, this isn't Ellie, and I don't think it's Ellie moving forward, but I am going to be critical. He has no protection. You can't sit there and say, well, the others need to step up and help Ellie De La Cruz. Ellie needs to help himself, because he's not carrying this team. Joe Burrow carried the Bengals when they were playing poorly. He carried them during that stretch. Nobody is carrying the Cincinnati Reds right now, and it is beyond frustrating. I don't want to hear about contract extensions with Ellie De La Cruz. Oh, the Dodgers this, the Dodgers that. The Dodgers don't want this Ellie De La Cruz. I don't want this Ellie De La Cruz. For the Reds to even have a chance moving forward, to not just win the division or make the playoffs, but just to win a simple damn series, he has to be Ellie De La Cruz. He has to be the superstar that we've seen him be, that they're expecting him to be. They put him on the video game covers. They're putting him all over MLB, marketing ploys across the league. He's expected to be something he has not been over the last 6 games. 3 for 24, 7 strikeouts, errors being thrown out, trying to steal. It can't happen. He has to be better. It's only 6 games. This is not who he is. But if you're asking me who I'm the most disappointed in 10 games into the season, it is without a shadow of a doubt, Ellie De La Cruz. It has been horrible.
My only issue with that is if you took away Ellie De La Cruz from our lineup, from our roster, this roster, and I'm trying to find one that's worse. Maybe the White Sox. I'd have to go take a look at who the White Sox got right now. But if we don't have Ellie De La Cruz, we have literally nothing at all. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm disappointed in Ellie when there's about 8 other guys that I'm vastly more frustrated with than him. Saying that, I mean, he hasn't played the best. It's certainly not prime Ellie De La Cruz we're watching right now. This is probably an Ellie De La Cruz that's looking around saying, where's the help? Where's the help? Because he doesn't have any. So I understand your point, but he's been, even as disappointing as he's been vastly better than everybody else still. So, I'm not going to take too much away from him in regards of that. Who am I most disappointed with? I mean, the obvious answer is Spencer Steer, but given the fact that he doesn't have arms, I'll lay off him on this one. Jeimer Candelario stinks. I mean, Jeimer Candelario stinks. He's just not good. He's not a good baseball player. He's not good defensively. He's not good at offense. He's not good at anything. We paid that guy a decent amount of money, and he has been terrible with the Cincinnati Reds. Absolutely terrible. You know, I'm still waiting, and I'm hoping that at some point he gets power, and maybe he can just hit 185, have an OBP like of 290, but can have like 25 home runs. That's the only thing I can hope for with Jeimer Candelario at this point, because it's been a clown show for just about everybody, but specifically Jeimer Candelario, a veteran guy, a leader. You need him to be good, and he's just nowhere close to competitive at the plate. So he's hitting ones. I mean, he's hitting 170. I mean, Spencer Steer's hitting 0.083 with a 154 OBP. Like this team's terrible. Jake Fraley hasn't drawn a walk this season. You know, I'm trying to give these guys a little bit of time to figure stuff out. But at the end of the day, I know who they are. I mean, I've watched enough of this team to know they don't got it. I mean, they just don't got it. We can sit here and hope that they're going to be better. The sun will come out tomorrow. But even if that were the case, I know someone would be hurt at that. By the time the sun comes out, somebody's going to be hurt. If Matt McLain doesn't play tonight, and I don't know if he will. Based on what Terry said, I have optimism that he's going to play tonight. But if he doesn't play tonight, then what are we even doing this year? I mean, we just don't have a single shred of hope if Matt McLain doesn't play baseball. We can sit here and blame Ellie, but one guy out of 9 just doesn't do it for me. Jeimer Candelario has to be better. Our outfield has to be somewhat competitive at the plate. TJ Friedl, you know what his sprint speed is? His sprint speed is like 5 this season. I don't know what happened to TJ Friedl, but he can't run anymore.
Him and Jose Trevino are like right there.
It's preposterous. It's preposterous how we have a lineup this bad to start the season. And if you want to be positive, that's your prerogative. You go ahead and be positive about this team. Maybe they'll figure it out. I'm sure at some point this year they're going to win 5 in a row, 6 in a row. It's baseball. It's a long, long season. But we are all fooling ourselves if we think this is a team that's playing competitive baseball in late September.
Yeah, Kidder obviously saying Ellie is the most disappointing so far. I don't think that's as crazy to say if you define disappointment as, comparing their current output to what the expectation was before the season. But Ellie and McLain are the only 2 everyday players in this lineup with a positive WAR. So I have trouble blaming either of them for the play so far this year when there's so many guys, 6 guys on this team hitting below 200. It's just not even close to a competitive roster. And with McLain not out there the last 2 days, you said it there when you were going through that, Justin. You said who's going to protect Ellie? He has to do it himself. No, there's not a soul in that lineup that can come even close to saying they're protecting Ellie De La Cruz right now if Matt McLain's on the bench with his hamstring injury. So I'm going to reserve my judgment on those 2 guys because they're the only 2 guys giving any kind of output through those first 10 games. So we'll see what happens. I think the thing that's frustrated me the most so far is I feel like I was sold a bill of goods on Gavin Lux that just wasn't the truth. And I don't know, how everyone else feels through 10 games, but he looks like he's never played outfield before in his life. And this is a guy that was supposed to start out there every day, or at least that's what I was told after the trade. It was either going to be there, DH or third base. Our DH spot obviously taken up by Spencer Steer with no arms, but, he's got to be in the lineup because you don't have any other bodies. So we throw Gavin Lux in left field, and he can't catch a fly ball. So I think that's up there for most frustrating things to me. I still think the dominant frustration for Reds fans everywhere is injuries. If this team was 3-7 through the first 10 games, and we had Tyler Stevenson catching, and we had Austin Hayes in the outfield, and Matt McLain had played 10 games at second base, I think there's a different feeling, worse, granted, but I still think there's a feeling of, okay, this is just who we are. And it's going to hurt these fans in the long run that are holding on to Tyler Stevenson and Austin Hayes to be the ones that save this team. Maybe it's Will Benson. Maybe it's Noel V. Marte who's killing it in AAA. So, there's some changes that could be made. I just don't think they're going to happen anytime soon. And we're stuck with what we got. And what we got is pretty bad.
I'm not gonna act shocked that Gavin Lux isn't playing up to.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna take victory
That's fair.
laps on players not being good.
No, I'm not trying to do that.
No, I'm saying for me. I'm saying for me because I was. Not that I was completely out on Gavin Lux, but that's just not a guy that is a starting everyday World Series winner that's going to help and bring the Reds a championship. He was that for the Dodgers because he didn't have to be good. He was, you could not be great for the Dodgers and help him win a World Series. He doesn't come to the Cincinnati Reds, hit 4 home runs in a season, and expect things to change, and then you're shoving him in the outfield for no reason. We can't have, for everybody who blames Spencer Steer, it's just as much of an embarrassment that Gavin Lux is playing left field.
Absolutely.
So I don't know whatever.
That's a reflection of the front office.
Correct.
Two options as everyday left fielders aren't outfielders.
Yeah, we have Evan in the chat saying Gavin Lux is good. What are we talking about? Yeah, Gavin Lux is great for a team that doesn't need Gavin Lux to be Elly De La Cruz.
If Gavin Lux was our Santiago Espinal, we'd have a World Series
Correct.
lineup, and that's where he belongs.
Correct.
He's not.
He's not that. He's just not that. Gavin Lux isn't the guy that hits top 4, but he is in Cincinnati because we don't have players.
Yeah.
He's not a left fielder. He's not. He's not an outfielder. He doesn't play in the outfield. But that's where he plays here because God knows we don't have enough talent or depth to make it work. So it's been a colossal disaster with every player on this team except for our pitching staff. That's it.
We're on, and we're going to get to the players that we've been impressed with 10 games in. We're 10 games in, 152 to go. And I said players, but if I said anybody within the Reds organization, would Terry Francona have appeared on anybody's list? Where are we at with Terry Francona right now? And this is not a blame the manager. This is not a get rid of Terry Francona. That's none of that. So I want to make sure that is included in any context that this discussion it goes. But Terry Francona is just doing some weird stuff. And a lot of it is because of limitations with this roster. We've talked about it. But like Espinal batting second, I can't get on board with that. Obviously, Jabot on opening day, I was like, that's opening day. It's game 1, not going to overreact. But like when you start, like there's just a lot of things he's doing that I just was not expecting to be talking about with a veteran Hall of Fame, multi-time World Series winning manager would be doing. Is it where are we at with Terry Francona? And again, not asking you guys, should we get rid of Terry Francona? But what's it like? Just like Elly, I can criticize Elly and not say he needs to be benched, go to Chattanooga, move him to the outfield. None of that. I just want him to play better. Same thing with Terry Francona. I want to see more. My biggest disappointment with Terry Francona, it honestly was the Jake Fraley situation. We talk a lot about accountability, but my gosh, can you imagine if David Bell was the manager for a team that had Jake Fraley jog to a ball that he let slip through, right by him, jog to a ball, just lightly, casually throw it in as the guy's making his way to third, and then was in the lineup the very next day? We would have lost our minds if David Bell did that. Terry Francona does it. There's been a lot of criticism of that. What's going on with Terry Francona? Do you guys feel like he's done a good job only 10 games in at this point?
I'm going to stay consistent here. Last year, the Reds were terrible. David Bell was blowing everything. I said it's on the players, not the manager. I think this is on the fact that we're running this lineup out here. Like, I don't think this is, a winning lineup, and I'm not going to put these losses on Terry Francona. Now, is it frustrating because there was a massive section of this fan base that believed he would result in immediate wins, and I started to inch on over to their side maybe as we got close to opening day? Yeah, that makes it a lot more painful than when David Bell was blowing games. But maybe this is just what happens when you have a terrible roster and you're going to lose some games in heartbreaking fashion and you're going to get shut out and you're going to play poorly and your bullpen's going to blow games. Maybe that's just what happens when you're not a very good team. So I'm not going to do a 180 here and put all the blame on Terry Francona. I do think it's funny that none of the people that blamed David Bell last year are blaming Terry Francona at all for how this start is going. Now it's on the players. So at least they're coming around. That's a positive. But yeah, it's very, very frustrating because we thought at the very least, even the least optimistic of us about the Terry Francona move, thought at the very least, the fundamentals and everything along those lines would go up and that would be a change within the organization. And that just hasn't been the case through 10 games.
It's not Terry Francona's fault that half his team can't play baseball. He's given the roster that Nick Krall assembled. Nick Krall, the ultimate Avenger. Hashtag get crawled. It's great that we all think so very highly of him. But the fact of the matter is this team wasn't built to win. We have a lineup that can't hit a baseball if they tried, and they don't try. So that's a part of the issue. I'm not going to sit here and blame Terry Francona because Jake Fraley doesn't jog for a baseball. That's on Jake Fraley. What is he going to do? Hey, Jake, please run. Do your job, Jake Fraley. And if you're not, I'm going to bench you. Bench him for who? Blake Dunn? Blake Dunn hits $110. Jacob Hurtubise? We're going to take out for Jake. Maybe I guess that's what you do. But it's so bad right now that I don't think you can blame Terry Francona. So the roster's never healthy, and they're also not very good. So I'm not going to sit here and blame the manager because the team that was not his to be assembled doesn't play good baseball.
The thing that's interesting, and you bring up a good point, like he jogs. What do you want Francona to do? My problem was, putting him right back in the lineup the next day, who are you going to put in? They're all equally bad at this point. I don't care. You're not wrong, Elliot, as far as that goes. Like, what do you want him to do? But I guess, like, when we talk about old school managers, I think we associate old school managers with the gruff and tough, take no nonsense. Unfortunately, I don't think that's Francona. I think we all had a false sense of what Francona is as a manager when it comes to that. And I don't want him to yell and scream and bench guys or anything. Well, bench guys if it's warranted. Let's be clear. I think I'm going to give Francona a pass on all of this because, to Elliot's point, bench him for who? Like, I get they're all equally bad, as what I just said a few seconds ago, but at the same time, like, it just sends a message throughout that, all right, if I'm going to jog and just half-ass it, it's all right. I'll be right back in the lineup the next day because who else is going to play? I just think that morale cancer is going to spread if that's the case. But we're 10 games in. A lot of this is overreaction to some, proper reaction to others, and we got to let this kind of play out a bit. A fresh series starts tonight. Unfortunately, it's on the West Coast against the Giants. Let's just get some of this West Coast stuff out of the way. But if they start playing poorly against the Pirates, that's when I'm going to start just ripping my hair out and throwing a temper tantrum even more. But we'll see. I know we have some super chats, Elliot, coming in. What we have coming?
So we have Nate, member for 13 months. Shout out to my guy Nate. Reds fans truly #got crawled this offseason. Highest hype this team has had in years, and we start 3-7. Why the hell is Ellie batting third? Bat him leadoff or second? Tito has had too much Tito's vodka. Nice word.
Nice. Good. I like that. Nice job.
Yeah. I mean, certainly that's questionable. I mean, I don't know why the best player doesn't bat first. I mean, that's usually how things go in today's game. I don't know what the logic is. Maybe Ellie's more comfortable there. But Ellie De La Cruz, being your best player and him not having the chance for the most at-bats per night on a nightly basis is weird to me. Very weird.
It felt great when TJ Friedl had a weak fly ball to end that game on Saturday night.
Yeah.
That felt great in the leadoff spot.
Hey, I will say this, though. Don't be beating up on TJ Friedl. He's at least 6 for his last 14. He has 3 RBIs. He's putting the ball in play. Would you rather have Ellie right now in the stretches he's in, 3 for 24 with 7 strikeouts? I mean, come on now. I get what you guys are saying, but don't beat up on TJ Friedl. He's one of the few guys that has outfield next to his name that's actually at least putting the ball in play and trying to make stuff happen. But
yes, I would rather have current Ellie lead off than
I would.
Friedl.
Yeah, I'd rather. I'll take Ellie De La Cruz over TJ Friedl.
No question.
The Reds ranked, by the way, 25th in batting average through 12 games.
Yeah.
They ranked 28th in on-base percentage. 28th.
Who's worse?
Somehow they ranked.
Who's worse is a great question.
Somehow they ranked 15th in runs because of 2 games.
They don't know. I think they think it's the total after the series.
Yeah.
You get all the wins, but it's not that. Kenner, you said after the Giants series, obviously the Reds got to take care of the Pirates. Can't lose to a team like the Pirates. Since 2022, the Reds are 16-28 against the Pirates.
All right, you know what? That's enough. We're taking a break.
Well, I didn't say what they were against the Brewers yet. They have lost 22. They've lost 22 of 30 to the Milwaukee Brewers.
Like I said, enough. We are going to break, and when we come back, you two have to say something nice about one of these players on this
Sure.
roster. Who have you been impressed with? Who have you been impressed with 10 games in? We'll get to that when we come back. We do have more on Matt McClain. Interesting update on him and his future with the Reds. And no, not just future for this season when it comes to his ability to actually be out on the field, but his long-term future with the Reds. Some interesting headlines coming out of the weekend that we'll dive into as well. So we'll be right back. More Off the Bench, more Reds talk next. Justin Kinner, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett. We'll be right back. All right, it was kind of easy to do the whole, like, which player are you the most disappointed in 10 games into the season? This is where it gets a little tricky. We're going to earn our money here. Which player, we're only 10 games in, and it was easy to throw out which player we most disappointed in, but which player have you been most impressed with coming in, whether it's, expectations coming into the season, how they performed 10 games in, however you want to, come up with this, but which player are you most impressed with as we sit here 10 games into this very, very long season?
You didn't say position player. I've been very impressed with most of our starting pitchers.
That's
They've
right.
been great. You're not going to pigeonhole me into saying I'm impressed with anyone in this lineup. But in terms of the starting pitching, I think, especially for those top three names, I won't steal them all because I don't want to take that away from Ellie Rue over there.
Thank you.
I'll go with Brady Singer. What has he done this year? What more could you ask for based on what he's done this year? It's just been unbelievable. 2.25 ERA through his two starts. He went deep into both those games and really controlled. Really no point of being too concerned during either of those two starts. He was phenomenal, and I think that's, as I said before, his first start, as I said before, his second start. And I'll probably keep bringing up all year long. I think Reds fans are going to be watching him pretty closely because, we know they're watching Jonathan India and what he's doing in Kansas City. So if Brady Singer blows any type of lead or game any point in time this year and Jonathan India follows it up with a home run, it's going to be tough for Brady Singer. But so far, so good for him and the Reds. If he can do this all season long, obviously I don't expect him to go undefeated, but if he can continue to go late into games, control the count, and really have dominant starts, if Lodolo and Hunter Green can stay healthy and that can be a top three, that really adds a lot to this team. So I've been very, very impressed with Brady Singer so far.
I think the most important player on the team right now is Hunter Green. I said that coming into the season, and
What?
don't know what that was. Don't know what that was. I think the most important player on the Reds is Hunter Green, and he's lived up to it. He's lived up to the hype. He's got 16 strikeouts in 12 innings. He's given up 3 earned runs total. He's got a 0.67 WHIP. His ERA is 2.2. It's early, so that's going to keep dropping. I think he's been absolutely incredible. He's the guy you need to be as good as he is as your bona fide ace, and he is that. So I'm happy that Hunter Green's pitched well so far. Hopefully that continues. Despite what the offense is giving him, if he goes out there and gives up 1 run in 7 innings every single night, the Reds have at least a shot. So that's all I can ask for from him is just near perfection. But Hunter Green's unbelievable. He's been unbelievable. He's going to be unbelievable. And I'm happy that he's a Cincinnati Red. And by the way, one of the few Reds that are locked up long term.
Yeah, we can't leave him out. We can't leave him out. Nick Lodolo's been phenomenal.
Very good.
So far. Team leader in ERA, 1.42 so far. I know that's not the most meaningful stat through 2 starts, but that's what you need out of him. Obviously, we've mentioned it before. That first start, it was rocky early, and then he locked in and rolled through late. The fact that he was able to go, whether it was 5 or 6 innings in that first start with only 1 strikeout, shows you just the type of pitcher Nick Lodolo is. And then to bounce back and have really a dominant performance in his second start, that's what we know Nick Lodolo is when he's healthy, and that's why I think Reds fans are so upset every single time he gets hurt, because we feel like we're getting robbed of having a truly great pitching rotation, and maybe this is the year. And I know it's probably not the best time to say lucky us Reds fans, but, I mean, if we didn't have a pitching rotation this good, how unbearable would this team be to watch through 10 games so far?
Yeah, it wouldn't be good, would it? I mean, it would be.
As painful as 1-0 losses are, you get 27 outs to think you're in the game. So, I mean, I think if you're going to take anything, at least, you know, with these guys pitching the way they're pitching so far, this team has a chance to win no matter how bad the offense is.
Yeah, I mean, look, the fact that they have 3 wins, and 2 of those 3 wins have come when you put double-digit runs up, I'd hope you can't lose. I mean, you know, to be fair, though, they've done crazier things. The fact that you hold an opponent to 1 run for 3 straight games and lose all of those, that's pretty damn impressive, too. So, wilder things, crazier things have happened. You guys are just beating up on him. There's not a lot to pick for. I don't want to repeat pitching. I was going to go with Nick Lodolo as well, but I kind of put Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo. You kind of tie them into the same boat. I think that's what we do with Matt McClain and Ellie De La Cruz. I think we kind of hold those 2 as a 1-2 punch in the lineup, and I think in the rotation, I hold obviously Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo to a 1 punch there, and then anything you get behind that is just gravy when it comes to this. And with Nick Martinez, and you guys brought up Brady Singer. You know, Andrew Abbott's going to be back relatively soon, so I think that's a good thing, and that, you know, allows us to have some options with Carson Spires. So, I look, there's no one in this lineup that you could look at and say, oh, man, I've been impressed with them. But I will say this. You guys were beating up on him earlier, but TJ Friedl has the second most at-bats on this team. He has the highest average on this team. He has double-digit hits. I mean, he's putting the ball in play, and he was the only guy that was consistent during the Brewers in 6 of his last 14. I like what they're getting out of TJ Friedl. He should not be their best outfielder, but he's the only guy that's contributing out of the outfield right now. I think he's doing his job as a leadoff hitter. I don't like the drop in speed. I don't like that he's not a playmaker from that standpoint. But I have to say, with limited options, with guys that have presented, roles in this lineup, he's the one that has been the most impressive so far. And I will say, I don't know if that's a good thing. I'll just say that. I don't know if that's a good thing, but I do have to, at least say, hey, TJ Friedl, he's been consistent, the most consistent, and I think there has to be a lot to be said about that, because no one else is doing what he's been able to do. And if he could do that, and Ellie's doing what he's supposed to, and McClain's healthy, and doing what he's supposed to, and Candelario, if guys are just doing what they're supposed to, this is not a bad baseball team. But my gosh, how long are we going to keep going with guys not doing what they're supposed to? And by the time they do start doing what they're supposed to, it could be too late. So guys need to get it figured out. They need to get it figured out starting tonight. Not just Ellie. I'm talking about everybody. Everybody needs to get it together and roll. So we're not just struggling, trying to find one guy like TJ Friedl that's actually putting the ball in play and has, leads the team in average at this point.
My main gripe with Friedl is basically what you just said right there. He has the most at-bats on the team. He shouldn't. I think that's the main takeaway. That's just a hill I can't get over with TJ Friedl in that leadoff role. You have a roster with Matt McClain and Ellie De La Cruz. There's no rationale that I can wrap my head around why one of those 2 guys isn't leading off. I can't understand why it wouldn't be Ellie. I guess if you want to put him second and lead off McClain, that's your prerogative. But I think one of those 2 guys is a no-brainer to be getting the most at-bats on this team. And I know TJ Friedl's played well so far, almost up to a 290 batting average, but every time, we're in a late-game situation and the number 1 spot comes up and it's TJ Friedl, that doesn't give you a lot of optimism.
No, I'm not. I mean, good for TJ Friedl. He's having an okay year. But as the season goes on, we can't have TJ Friedl be our leadoff guy. It's just not how a good roster is constructed. And I'm hoping that he can be competitive. I'm hoping he can be the 2023 TJ Friedl that we saw. I just have a hard time believing that's going to be the case. So good for him so far.
But he's doing it. What is he not doing?
I mean, he's getting caught.
He's one extra base hit.
He's getting caught stealing. It's like they're.
We're going to hold him to a higher standard than Ellie.
He is a lower WAR than Ellie. Ellie's been a better player so far this year than TJ Friedl.
3 for 24 over the last 6 games. I think we're like a lot of those 2 big games that he's had has bumped up his numbers a lot.
Yeah, but if he doesn't have those 2, if he doesn't have those 2 big games, then we don't lose. We don't win those 2
TJ Friedl's just average all the time, and Ellie is great and then bad, that levels out to above average. Ellie has a .2 WAR and Friedl's at 0.
But like we're taking players that we shouldn't be holding to a high standard and ignoring what they do well, and the players that should be playing well, we're just saying, well, he's Ellie, it's fine.
I guess I just don't think
fine.
TJ Friedl's been like that good this year. I don't think a 0.0 WAR when you incorporate everything together is a very great.
He's the only one hitting.
Yeah, but
he's literally the only one hitting.
Yeah,
on a team that can't
doesn't
hit,
mean a lot in this Reds roster, I guess is the main takeaway.
On a team that can't hit, the only guy hitting, that doesn't mean anything?
Yeah, but
being the best hitter on the 2025 Reds does not move me.
Justin, you just credited Ellie's big games. TJ has 4 hits in 1 game against the Brewers. That's half of his hits. That's
half the team's hits because no one else can hit the damn ball.
Well, I'm just saying. Like, if we're gonna blame Ellie for not having good enough, big games. Like, I mean, this guy had 4 hits in 1 game. I'm happy for him.
Ellie's an all-star.
He is an all-star. I'm not cheering against TJ Friedl by any means. I'm glad he's contributing at some level. But I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm going to expect that going forward. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think TJ Friedl's going to hit 290 for the next 3.5 months, 4 months.
And Ellie's been incredibly disappointing so far. I still wouldn't put him below. I mean, Matt McClain's clearly number 1. I would still have him second in terms of players on this team so far, maybe third if you're going straight position players, no pitching, even with the numbers that you've said. So yeah, I mean, I would obviously want more from them, but the fact that this cold stretch for Ellie not playing well over the last however many games, and he's still one of 2 players that are positive compared to the rest of the league at their position. I think that tells you more about the rest of the Reds lineup than it does about Ellie.
Well, it's 10 games in. I'm not losing my temper over 10 games into the season, so we'll just agree to disagree. I will say this tonight, though, because this is how it works for me. Ellie's going to go off, and this is a good thing. Ellie will go off. Friedl will go 0 for 4 with like 3 strikeouts. He'll have an error. You know what I mean? Like he'll draw a walk, but he'll get thrown out. Like it'll just be. I can't wait for when. I guess we won't be on tomorrow. Maybe that's
we're not going to be. Yeah, again, reminder: we will not be on Tuesday or Wednesday. But I'm hoping the Reds win. Like I'm not cheering against the Reds. I hope they win. I just know that I'm not expecting it at this point. Another guy, by the way, real quick, I wanted to mention him as one of the guys I've been impressed with. Tony Santillan has been incredible this season. He has been absolutely lights out. If there were any doubts of whether or not you think we don't have a closer and we needed one, Tony Santillan would be that closer, and he'd be better than Alexis Diaz. I know it's only 5 games, but 5 1/3 innings, he's given up, 0 runs, 2 hits, and he's struck out 7. He has been unbelievably good, and hopefully that continues this year. Maybe, who knows, if Alexis Diaz isn't going to come back in and be the closer of the team, maybe Tony Santillan has that spot locked down. It's been a wild ride for him. He came up as a starter. He's moved all over the place, went down to AAA when he struggled, has been hurt, and then he's come up this season. He's been absolutely incredible. So good for Tony Santillan. I'm excited to watch him moving forward as well.
He's been a great pitcher, obviously. The most impressive thing for me when it comes to Tony Santillan is the fact that he's 28 years old. Yeah. He looks so old.
He looks very old.
He looks so old.
He looks like he's 40, and that's okay.
I was going to guess 33 to 35. He's pulling in at 27, 357.
That's my guy.
We're going to have to throw a birthday party next week.
That's my guy. Tony, don't worry about what other people think of you, buddy. You just keep pitching well, and that's all that matters.
That's a good goatee, too.
That is a great goatee.
Real firm on both sides. Yeah, Tony Santillan, if you built a closer, that's what he would look like.
That's exactly what he would look like. That's my closer.
So, I think that's a good place to be. Diaz did pitch over the weekend in AAA, so hopefully he'll be back soon, whether that's in the closing role or 7th or 8th inning role. That'll be a big addition for the Reds to get him back.
Graham, do you know how that went? Go ahead, sorry.
No, do you know how that went? I didn't realize he pitched over the weekend.
I did not see, but I can try to find it real quick.
Graham Ashcraft has 0 runs given up on the year as well in 4 games, 3 1/3 innings. He's been pretty solid. Not a ton of strikeouts for our boy, but in a limited role, he's been good. He's been what we've wanted. Taylor Rogers, that was a name that I really liked coming into the year. Again, has not allowed a run through his 3 1/3 innings of work. I've liked what I've seen there. Outside of that, Emilio Pagan, again, another reliever who has not yet given up a run. The rest of them, you could take it or leave it. Ian Jabot, shout out to my guy Ian Jabot.
3 strikeouts in AAA. 3 strikeouts in AAA through 2 innings, an inning per game, 2 appearances for Alexis Diaz. No earned runs.
All right, off the bench, presented by UDF, Justin Kinner, Elliot Ruring, Jacob Tissett with you here. Another Red storyline that came out over the weekend that we'll get to that involves the future of Matt McClain in Cincinnati. We'll talk about that, plus a big-name superstar in Major League Baseball. It was just announced an hour before the show, signs a major extension as well. So we'll get to all of that when we come back. More off the bench next. All right, we welcome you guys back. This is Off the Bench, presented by UDF. Happy Monday. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Yes, talking a lot of Reds. I think Reds are at the top of everyone's mind, not for all the right reasons. I think we're holding on barely to the hope that there's something in this roster, that there's something there that they can turn it around. But nonetheless, Reds only 3 wins at this point, coming in 3-7, 10 games in. They start a new series with the Giants tonight. Game 1, 2, and 3, 3 on Wednesday, and then of course they'll turn their attention towards the Pirates after an off day Thursday, and they return home this coming up weekend, so that's good. As we sit here right now, so it was announced earlier today. We'll stay with Major League Baseball here for a second, but coming into the year, I remember we were kind of keeping an eye on the Blue Jays with Vlad Guerrero Jr., and they couldn't get a deal done before the season started. In fact, news had came out that they were just going to that they were not going to negotiate on a deal during the season. It almost kind of reminded me of the Jeimer Chase Cincinnati Bengals thing, where this time it was more so the Bengals were the ones that came out and said they were not going to negotiate during the season. That was like a team policy, if you will. Vlad Guerrero and his camp came out and said if they didn't get a deal done before the season, that they were not going to be interested at all in negotiations once the season started. Apparently that was not the case, because Vlad Guerrero Jr. and the Toronto Blue Jays are in agreement on a 14-year, $500 million contract extension. Of course, that's all pending a physical. So that's pretty big news coming in. Again, a 14-year, $500 million contract. Not bad, because we were already making the joke. So when that news came out that they weren't getting a deal going, I'm like, oh man, Dodgers going to get a good one. Dodgers getting a good one at some point. But he will remain in Toronto. They get the deal done. I love seeing stuff like this. I hate watching star players leave. I hate when teams let star players go in baseball and then they go to the biggest market and the biggest contract possible. I love seeing that a team was able to draft a player, develop a player, keep a player, and that's what happens here. That's a good thing for Major League Baseball. Obviously a good thing for Vlad Guerrero Jr., but even more importantly, good for Toronto. They get the face of their franchise for, well, at least a 14-year deal.
Yeah, Vlad did clarify after the announcement what he said, and obviously you can believe him or not, but he said since the season started, it has been just his agent. By that quote, before the season started, he meant he would not partake in those. Now, obviously, Who knows whether or not he's telling the truth in those lines. I have a tough time believing you're going to sign a 14-year, $500 million contract without being a part of those negotiations in some way or another. But that's at least the story he's sticking to. Yeah, no, certainly good for the Blue Jays, for Blue Jays fans, for Vlad Guerrero. I think Blue Jays fans were certainly getting a little antsy. They were second or third for Shohei Ohtani. They were right in the mix for Roki Sasaki and Yamamoto. So they've been right up there. Juan Soto as well before he signed with the Mets. So every big name free agent over the last however many years they've been going after. And I think everyone kind of unanimously circled those moves and said they're trying to prove to Vlad before he hits free agency that they're the real deal and they're trying to commit to something. Now, obviously, they weren't able to get any of those major signings across the finish line, but, I mean, getting Vlad done now, another homegrown free agent, Bo Bichette, going to be on the market after this season. Maybe they shift their focus, keep those guys in-house. Certainly a good thing to see Vlad stay in Toronto. He's one of those guys that falls into that group that if he does hit the open market, it's New York or LA.
Yep.
There's no other option. Maybe you get, the one-off of the Giants going all in on a big-time player or something along those lines. But the number of teams that would be able to court Vlad Guerrero Jr. in free agency, and it's not a long list. So always a win for, little old us here in Cincinnati when one of those big-time teams doesn't get one of those star players. I guess the Blue Jays kind of fall in that range as well. They have the money. They can play with that. But it still feels like they get to keep someone home. So that's a positive. I'm glad that he'll probably play in one uniform his entire career, if I had to guess.
There's not a better feeling in the world than your favorite player being with your team for his entire career. I wish that was going to be the case in Cincinnati with Elly De La Cruz. It's not. We got to see that with Joey Votto, which was really, really cool, and I'm very thankful we got to see that with Joey Votto here in Cincinnati. But as the new age baseball comes around and you have the Dodgers deferring $2 trillion to the year 2072, it's near impossible for the Reds to be able to compete or even be in the same ballpark stratosphere as some of these big market teams. I don't think they have a shot in hell to get Elly De La Cruz to stay in Cincinnati, which is unfortunate. That's a problem we'll deal with in 5 years or 4 years from now, 3 years from now, but good for the Blue Jays, and 500 for that's what, 35 million, 34 million, something around there. 35. So it's like that's what you pay. That's what you pay a really good baseball player in the year 2025.
Interesting to note, at least right now, none of that money deferred.
None of it.
None of that money of that $500 million Blue Jays contract deferred. So, round of applause to the Toronto Blue Jays. When you pay star players, they actually pay them. So kudos to them. It'd be nice if everyone did.
Now, and the cool thing about Vlad Guerrero Jr., obviously, with the Blue Jays too. Obviously, I remember watching his dad play. I'm 35 years old. I could finally say that. How about that? But I do. I remember watching his dad play. His dad was one of my favorite players. So there you go. But obviously that's big for baseball, big for him. Again, like I said, like baseball is just every time you see a star like him develop. You rarely remember him you rarely remember the player for the team that they started out with. You remember him for the team that they ultimately go on to have the most success with, and that's what we're seeing. Like, we're not going to remember Shohei for his time with the Angels, right? Mookie at least had success with the Red Sox too, so that helps. You're not only going to remember him for his time with the Dodgers and this, that, and the other, but you think of Bryce Harper. People forget, I don't say they forget that he played for the Nationals, but you just remember him more for what he's doing now. And I think that's the thing. At least we're going to be able to associate Vlad Guerrero Jr. with the Blue Jays from the time he came into the league until the time his career comes to an end, barring any kind of, shift in direction from the front office when it comes to, Toronto. So, and Votto, same thing. Obviously, you mentioned Elliott. He's a Red. You don't think of him with anybody else. He's simply a Cincinnati Red. Jake, there were some other contract extensions, too, around the league, one that does impact the Reds.
Two other notable contract extensions that I think do impact the Reds. A little bit further back than this weekend. We touched on them lightly last week, but now with the information that Matt McClain turned down an extension this offseason, I think both of these are very, very pertinent to the situation here. Jackson Merrill, the outfielder in San Diego for the Padres, finished second last year to Paul Skeens in National League Rookie of the Year voting. Many people thought he should have won it. He was a very, very good player in his rookie season. He signed a 9-year, $116 million extension before this season, or maybe right after opening day in that window right at the start of this season. And then the Red Sox last week, after extending Garrett Crochet to a big money contract to be their ace for the near future, they extended Christian Campbell, their top prospect second baseman who came up and debuted with them on opening day this year. So getting that contract done before he played in the majors, as opposed to Merrill after his number one, ace season in center field for the Padres. So I think these, obviously the Vlad contract's the big news in terms of getting contracts done, but I think these two contracts go much more in tune with what the Reds are trying to do with Matt McClain. Obviously, McClain's not a $500 million player. Maybe he will be down the line, but if you're talking about an extension with Matt McClain, a guy who played one season, or a little bit over half of one season, got hurt and missed a whole season, you're not talking about $500 million. You're talking about something to eat up the rest of his rookie contract, get into arbitration, and maybe add a year or two, if you're lucky, add 3. And I think that's what we're seeing here in these other contracts, and I think these are the price points that he's going to be closer to. I think if they would have offered him something close to that Jackson Merrill contract, that 9 years for $116 million, I think that's an easy yes for Matt McClain and Matt McClain's camp. But as we see now, again, scratched from the last 2 games with a hamstring injury, is that the type of money you're comfortable giving a player that hasn't shown you any kind of consistency when it comes to being healthy? So I think somewhere between that 8-year, $60 million deal for Christian Campbell before his debut and that 9-year, $116 million deal for Jackson Merrill, somewhere in that, I know it's large, but somewhere in between those 2 contracts, I think would be where Matt McClain would find his sweet spot in terms of an extension for the Reds.
I hope the Reds can get a deal done with Matt McClain. They have to extend somebody. They can't just have a team full of rentals. Eventually, you have to sign one of these guys in the lineup once they show you anything. Jacob's point, and I think everybody's point should be, you get these deals done early before they can do it. To be fair to Matt McClain, are you in the best position when a team offers you a long-term deal after the worst season that you could have probably had, which is when you weren't healthy? So it makes.
And that's what he said.
Yeah.
That was the quote. I didn't play last season.
Yeah.
So he's obviously just believing in himself.
There's no reason for him to sign that contract. When I assume him and everybody in Major League Baseball knows the Reds aren't coming in with big numbers. Yeah. So I imagine after this year there'll be a better answer, a better picture for it. Hopefully, if he plays, God willing. So they have to lock up somebody on this lineup. I'm hoping it's Matt McClain. I could see it being CES, I guess. I don't know yet, but frustration.
I do think something that's, especially with the Reds, that's of the utmost importance when you talk about these extensions with these guys, that we all think if they play to their ceiling, get out of the Reds' price range. You're never going to be able to beat the Dodgers when it comes to how many hundreds of millions of dollars you're able to pay these guys.
Yeah.
The benefit that the Reds have, what they have over these guys in terms of the extension is these rookie contracts, is how the MLB sets up these debuts and the contracts that come off of them. And the Reds have control of these guys for 5-6 years. So the way you get these extensions done in a team like Cincinnati that can't compete at the top of the open free agent market is you give them value in those years they're already under contract. You eat up those rookie years with slightly higher paydays, lower than the top of the market, but a significant increase from what they'd get paid anyway that they're already under contract. That's the only wiggle room the Reds have. That's the only negotiation tactic the Reds have. So that's why every offseason we all unanimously, opening day starts, lost another year on Ellie's contract. There goes a little bit of our negotiation power. And it's the same for everyone else. The best case that the Reds have to extend any of these guys is the earlier they get it done. And every single year and month and game that comes off after that, their chances go down. And that's just the reality of being a small market baseball fan.
Yeah, I remember a lot of this talk during the T. Higgins drama in Cincinnati when it came to the Bengals and the Bengals need to do a job of paying their players earlier. Well, just because you want to approach a player to try and pay them earlier doesn't mean that they have to do it. It doesn't mean that they're going to do it. I mean, some players are good enough to where they're going to gamble on themselves, and that's what basically it sounds like Matt McClain is doing. I do find it ironic that the same weekend that this comes out, that Matt McClain turned down a contract extension negotiation offer before opening day, comes the same weekend that he is scratched from the lineup not once but twice, played in between both of those, the most Cincinnati Reds thing ever, by the way. Scratching you from the lineup due to an injury, being in the lineup the next day, and then taken out again the next day. That's the most Reds thing ever right there. But hopefully that's not something that lingers on. I just find the irony in that when it comes to the report that came out regarding the future of Matt McClain. I will say this, Matt McClain, I get him wanting to gamble on himself, but he's not Ellie De La Cruz. I know we put them as the 1-2 punch. He's not Ellie De La Cruz. Ellie has a lot of leverage, obviously. I think the ceiling for him is through the roof. I think the ceiling for Matt McClain is pretty damn high as well, but the thing is, can he reach it due to health? And I think every injury that he experiences, he needs to really consider sprinting to the front office of Nick Kroll and saying, where do I sign? Because right now the Reds would be gambling more. If you I think Hunter Green, it was a big gamble, him signing that cheaper deal to extend with the Cincinnati Reds. Ellie would be gambling. It would be silly for Ellie to sign an early contract. It just would. I want him to, but it would be silly of him to at this point. Even with as much as he stinks right now, it would be silly of him to do that. But for Matt McClain, he's one more tight hammy away from, I think he needs to hobble over to the front desk and buzz himself into Great American Ballpark and ask to see Nick Kroll so he can sign that extension right now. I think he's gambling way too much by not signing that extension. Do you guys agree or disagree?
I don't necessarily disagree, but to push back a little bit on the Ellie discussion on an extension, I don't know that he would, be so dumb to sign an extension right now. I think if that extension is 12, 15, 17 years, then yeah, certainly he's giving up some value, but for the next 4 seasons, he's making $700,000. If the Reds give him a 7-year extension at $20 million a year, he's making a ton more money than he would have. Obviously, he's losing, a year or two of free agency on that big-time contract, but you still hit the open market at 27, 28 years old before you're 30. You get that big payday, and the Reds are able to eat up this rookie contract while giving him a little bit on the back end. I think that's the only way they can get this done. I think Reds fans are a little bit too locked in on will Ellie retire a Red, and they should be more locked into, can we steal an extra year or two in this whole thing? And I think that's the way the Reds can go about it and make it make sense for everybody. I mean, we've all heard about the deal Ellie has where he has to give some of his money he makes from Major League Baseball to the scouting firm, and I think a lot of that can come into play with contracts like this and wanting to make more serious money earlier in your career. So will he sign a 12 or 15-year extension like Vlad just did? Absolutely not. I don't think the Reds would ever offer him something like that. Would they, be able to maybe get him at a 7 or 8 year deal that makes a lot of sense for everybody? Maybe. And I think that door is closing every single year we advance, but it might still be open. In terms of Matt McLain, if he suffers another serious injury, do we want to extend him?
Yeah, I don't know.
Fair.
Big money extensions in Cincinnati kneecap this team if they don't work. We're not the Cubs. We can't give Jason Hayward a Brinks truck and just be fine when he can't hit. That doesn't work in Cincinnati. If we give Matt McLain a 10-year, $120 million deal, and he's not good or he's not on the field, this team's gonna be in the gutter for a long time. So Obviously I want to extend a lot of these guys, but I would be very cautious in terms of extending Matt McLain with this injury history.
I don't think Matt McLain's gambling at all because what leverage do the Cincinnati Reds have that he's not going to play? I mean, he legitimately has to play. The lineup's not good. Matt McLain's by far the second best player in the lineup, and that's whether he's hurt or not. So he's like, you know what? Why not play a year, see if I can play a year, and see if I can get even more money? Because the Reds have to offer him something. The fan base would destroy him if they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think the Reds have any power in that specific scenario. Regarding the Ellie thing, Ellie's not a long-term player for the Reds, but like Jacob just said, if you can get Ellie in his prime here in Cincinnati, I don't know, maybe he's more enticed to do a 6-year, 7-year deal, 8-year deal, opposed to a 12, 15-year deal. I don't know what the numbers would be on that, and certainly when the players or when the league goes on lockdown in a few years, maybe we'll have a better understanding of what that looks like. But as far as Matt McLain, no, I don't think he's gambling at all. I think he's playing with house money.
If you had to rank non-extended players on the Reds, who do you think is the most likely that they get done? Obviously, that basically just excludes Hunter Green and Jose Trevino.
Matt McLain will get done.
I think the most likely option is Tyler Stevenson.
I think Matt McLain gets done first.
Okay.
I think that's over Tyler Stevenson.
I was pretty surprised Stevenson didn't get done this offseason, if I'm going to be completely honest. I thought they were going to get that done before this most recent arbitration hearing. I still think Stevenson is a no-brainer to extend him as the catcher of the future for this team. I mean, why mess around with potentially losing him when he's shown what he's able to do when he's out there? I think him and then McLain would be the two no-brainers.
That's another one, though. Obviously he's going to be injured for a long time this season.
Yeah.
Are you paying him as a catcher or are you paying him as a DH or first base?
It's a very good point.
That's why I don't know if Stevenson would be ahead of McLain, but I do think you're right. I think Stevenson and McLain have to be extended.
I don't think there's a lot of options.
Outside of that, there's nobody.
So much talent.
CES, if you
Steer?
believe. Steer, no.
A contract as a utility bat, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. If he'd sign that. I don't know if he'd sign that, but yeah.
Right. I mean, you think one of those 29 teams is giving him a left fielder contract?
Good point. It's a good point. Maybe if somebody's desperate enough.
India got one.
India did get one.
If Steer did sign it, it'd be with that left hand of his. It would not be with his right hand. He's be very, very careful. But either way. All right, Off the Bench, presented by UDF. We close things out, at least on the radio side, when we come back. Don't go anywhere. All right, and we are back. This is Off the Bench. We are brought to you by United Dairy Farmers. We appreciate you guys. Happy Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. We'll close it out. We'll take a look at the national championship game tonight. Talk about Houston and Florida as the college basketball season wraps up tonight. But before we do that, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We talked a lot. I mean, Reds is pretty much the driving force right now until they kind of go stale on us, and we hope that's not for a very, very long time. We hope it's never. We hope that they figure this out, right? I think we all do. But for those who are tuning in right now, please give the stream a like, give it a thumbs up. It helps us grow the show, helps us with the algorithm and all that. And the show has grown. That's been very cool to kind of follow that, especially over the last couple years with the show kind of changing and just different pieces coming in and out. But the most consistent it's been, and especially since we got closer to baseball season, we've seen the numbers take off. So appreciate you guys. While you're in here, please give the stream a like. We really appreciate it. All right, tonight, national championship game. Obviously, the college basketball season officially wraps up. Houston and Florida, 8:50, the tip-off on CBS. So,
yes.
You might as well. We might, I think that's why we're off tomorrow. I think we're off tomorrow because the Reds have a 9:45 first pitch, and the national championship game tips off at 9. I just don't think we want to get up that early in the morning. But, guys, national championship game tonight. Florida is a 1.5 favorite. What we thought was going to be Auburn-Duke or Florida-Duke, it's Houston and Florida. That's your national championship game.
When I think of, April 7th, it's just like, wow, jam-packed sports calendar. When can I fit this national championship in? 9 o'clock's the only answer. So, kudos to them for figuring it out with, everything going on in early April. Obviously, that's sarcasm. There's nothing all day, and then they tip that off when it's dark as night out for no reason. It's miserable. Yeah, this is going to be a great game.
Jacob, it's for the West Coast.
That's right. I don't care about them.
It's for the notoriously great basketball fans in the West Coast.
The diehard sports fans in L.A.
Yeah. I'm sure they got nothing better to do at 6 o'clock their time on their pitches.
I think this is going to be a great game. And I don't know how you could really predict anything else based on what we saw Saturday. These two games were historically good Final Four weekend. It was unbelievable between Auburn and Florida. Auburn led that game at half and all the way, close to the end. And Florida makes a run. And then Duke with control of that one until the very end, 91.5 winning percentage until the last 35 seconds of the game when Houston was able to steal an inbound pass, make a three, and come all the way back. These games have lived up to the hype, and great things happen when great teams play each other. We need a third game tonight of two great teams going up against each other.
I'm going to take the Houston Cougars. I think that Jacob's got me all in on them. Congratulations to him. He was right.
When did I get you all in on them?
I think you got me all in before the year, but I didn't really believe it until probably right around the Elite Eight.
Okay. At least as long as you make it known that I was selling it pre-tournament.
Because you sold it pre-tournament. I started betting on them in the Sweet 16. I hammered them on Saturday plus 5.5. I didn't think they'd win. I thought they'd cover though, and they certainly did. So I think Houston wins tonight. Them winning in miracle fashion like they did.
Yeah.
I think almost cements them as the Cinderella, if there was a Cinderella story this year.
Also against Duke.
To take down Duke in the way that they took down Duke. I know they're a 1 seed. I know they lost, 3 games this year. I know they're unbelievable. So it's not a traditional Cinderella story, but it is a story that's going to be fun heading into a national championship game. I think it was theirs to lose. I think Sampson's unbelievable as a head coach. He deserves one. That program deserves one. And I will be all in on Houston tonight.
Me too. No question about it. It's something interesting to note. Obviously, that a very unlikely comeback. We talked about the 91 winning percentage for Duke with just 35 seconds left. It was Houston's second most improbable victory of the year. Not their most improbable comeback. They were down 6 points to Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse with 11 seconds to go in overtime.
Yeah.
Won that game. So this is what Houston does.
Yeah.
This is just the team that they are. And you mentioned Kelvin Sampson, the coach leading that squad. I just wanted to touch on a little bit what he's been able to do at Houston. He took over that job in 2014, left the NBA to become the Houston Cougars head basketball coach. And when he took over, they were nothing. I mean, this basketball program was nothing. In 2016, 2 years after he took over, he put $25 million into the practice facility to renovate it. $60 million 2 years later went into the stadium to make it a marquee basketball stadium in the college landscape. In 2019, they broke a school record with 33 wins. That came a year after having their first March Madness win in school history in 34 years. In 2021, the first Final Four in 34 years. And then tonight, they will play in their first championship since Hakeem played for the Cougars. What Kelvin Sampson's been able to do at Houston is unbelievable. I know they're not a blue blood. They're not in that realm. But if you ask the common basketball fan to list the stalwart programs, the teams that are there every single year, I'm pretty sure Houston would come up. And that's only because of Kelvin Sampson. And he's done a phenomenal job building a culture there that is shown very clearly in the tournament. And that's why they've had so much success.
You know, it's funny. Because, Elliot, your biggest complaint about this tournament was it's just been boring. It has. I agree with you. It was pretty much a boring tournament in regards to nothing super exciting, no buzzer beaters, all that. But I tell you what, the last couple of weeks, the tournament intensity has picked up. I mean, between the comebacks, between the dramatic finishes to games, I think we've gotten a lot of that. No Cinderella teams, but I think Houston, it's hard. I don't list a one seed as a Cinderella story, but I think how they got here makes them a Cinderella story. And, Jake, I'm glad because me and you feel like we've follow a lot of the same accounts. I had that in my notes to bring up. All that stuff you just brought up about how Houston built that program up, that is a Cinderella run because it's Houston. You know, everyone keeps saying today in the world of NIL, it's just where the rich get richer. It's for the Dukes. It's for the Carolinas. It's for the Kentuckys and the Kansases of the world and the Floridas, the SEC now, and it's the big programs. Houston they're about to potentially, if they win tonight, and even if they don't, the fact that they are here, they've completed their Cinderella run to prove that, okay, this isn't just, we're a good competitive team every year. By the way, that's Gonzaga. Gonzaga loves to hog all the headlines and prove, oh man, look, we could do it until you can't. And they never get it done. Houston has a chance to get it done tonight. They've invested into the program. They've built the program up. He didn't go to some program that already has all the pieces in place. He literally had to financially build it from the ground up. And look at what they're doing now. In the world of NIL, it should be Duke in Florida or Duke Auburn or one of that. And the fact that Houston has a chance to hoist the trophy up, I would just find that to be a very ironic finish to a season, that you have Houston of all teams hoisting the trophy up when it's supposed to be all the blue bloods. That's where all the players are going. That's where all the money is going. I find that to be a very potential signature finish to the season if Houston can hoist the trophy up. But what a game that was against Duke. I mean, Duke led by 14 with 8 minutes left.
Yeah.
They led by 9 with 2:06 left, 6 with 34 seconds left, 3 with 25, and 1 with 19, and Duke lost. Houston's a feel-good story. Florida's a feel-good story, too. That's a fun team to watch. This is good for college basketball. I love this national championship matchup tonight.
One last Houston stat. Over the last 25 seasons, 7,859 Division I teams have trailed by 5 or more points at halftime in 5 games. Only one of those teams has gone undefeated. Houston 5-0 this year when trailing by 5 or more points at halftime.
How about that?
Unbelievable how consistent they are, the brand of basketball they play. It doesn't matter what happens. They're never out of the game. And that's why I think they're going to be able to handle Florida tonight. I think Florida's offense is so dependent on the guard play and Walter Clayton being able to facilitate everything, obviously mostly through the scoring. We've seen back-to-back 30-point games for the first time since Larry Bird. It's unbelievable in the Elite Eight and the Final Four. But I expect L.J. Cryer and Emmanuel Sharp and the rest of these Houston defenders on the perimeter to really slow down this Florida offense. And I just went through everything as to why I think Kelvin Sampson's the best coach in the country. So I'll certainly be on the Cougars tonight, but not taking anything away from Florida. Walter Clayton, the transfer from Iona, was built in a lab, I think, by Rick Pitino to win March Madness games, and that's what he's doing right now at Florida. Todd Golden's done a great job this year getting this team, up to snuff, and I think it's important to note we had a debate, at the beginning of the tournament, the overrated SEC. Do they get too many teams in? Half the Sweet 16, half the Elite Eight, half the Final Four, half the championship.
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna bet my life on Houston tonight. I'm gonna hammer them, and then I'm gonna hope that they can win, because if they do, it does kind of keep, as you guys mentioned, it keeps the old school basketball how it used to be alive. It keeps that tradition of hard-nosed defense and almost loyalty, right? I mean, they've in the world of NIL, as you guys kind of brought up, they're one of the few teams that don't have a billion transfers every single year. They've kept Roberts for how many years now? 8 years. So I think Houston is like Houston winning would be kind of like, I don't know, it would be a good way to pass into the new era of college basketball where NIL just takes over.
Cincinnati, a big winner of that Houston win. You saw Kelvin Sampson said that they play in the Big 12, not that patty cake league.
That's right.
The ACC. So puff your chest out a little bit. You're a power conference team, baby.
It's a win for us, I guess.
And you guys came in together. You guys came
That's
into
right.
the league together. You came into the league together. But if Houston loses, I mean, what a loss for the Big 12. I mean, since you could say Cincinnati and Houston both lost their final game in April. You guys are the same
It's not
if
too
they
bad.
lose tonight.
I guess.
If they lose. All right, guys, good stuff. We are going to be at Prasco the next 2 days for the Joe Nuxall Classic, so we'll be busy the next couple of days. So no show, correct, tomorrow and Wednesday? Is that
Correct.
That
am I
is
getting-
correct.
Okay. All right, but we'll be back on Thursday talking about the Reds taking the whole series, a sweep. We're going to be talking about a
Sweep.
Red sweep when the show returns on Thursday. Hopefully.
I'm all in.
A Red sweep, not
Yeah.
getting swept.
Yeah.
Sweeping.
Yeah, I'm all in too.
I'm all
Sweeping,
in.
yeah. All right, that wraps it up for us. Until Thursday, this has been Off the Bench, presented by UDF.
That's not bad for real time.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
That's pretty middle.
By the way, we have a super chat from Colin here, member for 9 months. Thank you, Colin. Time is a flat circle in Cincinnati. Nothing ever changes with either the Bengals or the Reds. It's a sad existence and basically self-torture being a Cincinnati sports fan.
Yeah, pretty much.
Welcome to the club, man. I can't watch the Reds anymore. I mean, I'm gonna do it because it's my job and I have to know what happens in the games.
Yeah.
But it's in terms of my enjoyment, it's going to be zero. I don't have any joy when I watch them anymore. I sat and watched yesterday's game in silence. Didn't say anything. Didn't smile. Didn't have fun. And that's just who they are. They're not a very fun team. So at least the Bearcats are doing something. A team that was terrible.
Yeah.
A team that was terrible at offense just got an 11.3% field 3-point percentage guy. So
There you
good
go.
for him. Sincere Harris. He shot again 11.3% from beyond the arc. He's going to come help this offense.
He's surely like 7'3".
No, he's not. So I don't know, man. I mean, he's 6'4". He's okay, I guess. If you
There you
want,
go.
I mean, I don't. He's fine at defense. He's a good defensive player. The Bearcats team gets better at defense. That's what we always wanted. That's what we get.
That is good.
In terms of Kirk Rissa, again, he's 6'3", shooting guard. What's his biggest flaw? He can't shoot.
Correct.
So he shot, what did he shoot this year in 9 games? 27% from the floor, 26% from 3.
The other thing that I think maybe UC fans are overlooking off the rip about Kirk Rissa, if this team's bad next year, he's unbearable.
Yeah.
So not only do you have to be good because 7 years without the tournament and all that good stuff, Wes Miller hot seat, all that good stuff,
Yeah.
most talented roster ever, all that good stuff. He also, your starting shooting guard also sucks
Yeah.
as a person. He's a fine basketball player.
Yeah. I just can't help that. What Mark wants to know what their free throw percentage is. That should be an uptick for what it's worth. He's very good at shooting free throws, over 80%.
That's what you want.
Over 80%. What's Harris at? Harris free throw percentage, much worse. Much worse. I don't know. I mean, these moves don't get me excited, but Dan Skillings is gone. I mentioned that in the headlines.
Is that the most impactful of the 3 moves?
I think so. Some teams out there, some teams going to get really bad when they bring in Dan Skillings. So
Some
I
team's
wish
fan base is going to get really excited for like 3 months, though.
correct. Up
He
until
has cool highlights.
until the season starts,
Yeah.
they're going to think he's great. But for those of you who know, now we no longer have to see that stupid dance when we walk into the stadium, whatever he's doing with this. Those of you who know what I'm talking about.
I saw a fresh Dan Stillings TikTok over the weekend. New one dropped. I was happy with that.
Yeah. What was he do? Singing a LeBron song?
Something like that.
I've been beat up so much this year with my sports teams that I've told Jacob that I'm thinking about becoming an Ohio State football fan.
Yeah. No, we
And-
welcome you. We welcome you on board.
And I haven't decided yet. I haven't signed the dotted line yet. So a decision has been made. But I just need to cheer for somebody who wins. And damn it, Ryan Day, he just wins. That's a winner.
He does.
As all Ohio State fans will tell you.
I've always said that.
He's a winner, and we love him. So I might just be an Ohio State fan. I'll have to pick somebody. I'm gonna have to pick somebody. So, it's unfortunate. I'm just trying to survive, man. This summer is going to suck for the Reds. But whatever. Each year is the same. We're in a never-ending circle.
Yeah, that's tough. My Crimson Tide are dominating the portal.
I'm happy for you.
That's fun.
You deserve it.
I don't want to, update everyone on Alabama. No one cares. But there are Kentucky fans in the chat, so I wanted to bring up Mark Pope was walking around a basketball stadium. I'm not entirely sure where it was. I don't think he was in San Antonio when the picture was taken, but it might have been.
Yeah.
He was taking pictures with fans sitting in the concourse, just walking around. Hey, Mark Pope, can I take a picture? Yeah. He put his arms around the fans. Mid-picture, he has to answer the phone.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Their number 1 transfer that they wanted is committing to Alabama.
Oh.
And there's a picture of him with 3 Kentucky fans around him, and his mouth is just wide open, and he's on the phone. And apparently that's when they found out that Taylor Bull Bowden was coming to Alabama
Wow.
instead of Kentucky. So
I like that.
That was very, very fun.
That is a
to see
cool
over the
story.
weekend.
I like that. Good for you, man. You deserve
Thank
another
you.
win.
Jaleel Buffet, number 5 player in last year's class, 5-star.
Yeah. How about that? Everything's coming up, Jacob.
That's right.
When do you stop watching the Reds? How many weeks are you going to give them here?
Well,
on TV. On TV.
I won't watch tonight. 'Cause
Correct.
It's at the same time as the championship.
Yeah, I got better things to do with my time.
We're dangerously close to reaching the part of the year where it's if I'm on the couch and nothing else is on TV.
That's fair.
I don't know how much longer I'm going to schedule around watching the Reds.
I think that I'm not going to schedule it at all anymore. I'm out.
Okay.
I'm going to try to listen to as many games as I can on the radio when I'm driving or something. But
that's preferable.
I'm done watching them. I'm done. I'm out. If they lose this series to the Giants, which they will, and then they lose to the Pirates, that series, we have nothing.
Yeah. No,
we have nothing.
That would
and
be
then,
it.
And then
That would be it.
all the people who say it's only 10 games, it's only 11 games, it's only 25 games, it's only 2 years, those people would have to stop eventually. So I'd imagine that would be the breaking point. It's been frustrating. I think Kirby brought it up that maybe we ran into a buzzsaw with the Rangers and the Giants. Both teams are unbelievable.
The buzzsaw that beat us 1-0 in back-to-back
I know.
games?
It's just like I don't know what are the positive spins anymore. I'm out of positive spins, guys.
Me too. We win these next 2 series, we're all right.
I guess. Do you think it's possible?
Yeah.
He doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe it's possible.
Yeah.
And that's okay because I don't believe it either. I think this is a joke. Anything else? Any other news? Sports news?
Let's look around the worldwide of sports.
Worldwide world of sports.
Let's take a look. Drew Pine will be committing to Bowling Green, the transfer quarterback.
Okay.
There was some Bengals visit news over the weekend. Bengals met with Ohio State running back Quinshon Judkins. Seems like with some of these meetings that running back in the second round could be on the table.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of a surprise. They're meeting still with all the top edge rushers and most of the top tackles.
Okay.
I think that's a position that maybe we overlooked in the first round. I think tackle for the Bengals is setting up pretty nicely to have some good players there. And obviously with Mims and Orlando Brown wouldn't play tackle in their first year or two. But if you can play a solid left guard and then be an Orlando Brown replacement, that's a big win for the Bengals. So I would certainly keep the door open when it comes to tackle in the first round for the Cincinnati Bengals. And then other than that, it doesn't seem like the D-line is something that they're viewing as much of an issue. They're putting more focus on the edge rushers and the pass rush off the end. Every report coming out of Paycor, out of the Bengals coaching staff so far this offseason seems to be that they believe a lot in Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson, the rookies from last year. And they think the additions of obviously keeping B.J. Hill around and then adding T.J. Slate, they think that's going to be enough. So I would probably bump down interior defensive line if you're trying to predict what the Bengals are going to take this year.
Do you think the floodwater in the player's garage, do you think that will sway any free agents from signing here?
Maybe it damaged some of the really bad food.
Yeah.
Maybe they have the food in the basement and it got damaged by the water. They got to cater Chipotle for the next week and we can get like a C-.
Yeah, maybe they can actually bottle up some of the water. Maybe they'll have bottled water at practice.
You can give it to the players' families on Wednesdays.
Well, okay. All right. Maybe the Bengals get somebody. Who knows? I doubt it. Vijay Singh, he withdrew from the Masters with an undisclosed injury.
That's a shame.
Masters, fantastic. I love the Masters. Nothing better than the Sunday Masters nap, and then watching whoever wins it in those final 4 holes. It's my favorite. It's a tradition like any other, truly. But outside of that, there's nothing else. You got anything else? I think that's it for today.
Other than the Reds being bad and draft rumors, I don't have any other sports going on in my life right now.
So go team. You're gonna bet Houston, right?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I'm gonna bet Houston. We're all betting money line or plus 1.5. Does it really matter?
I'm taking money line. I bet on Houston to win it beforehand. I'm gonna bet on them now.
That's fair. All right. That's what we got. Everybody have a very pleasant Monday afternoon. We will see you Thursday. We will see you back Thursday. Love you all.
We'll box some lunches for you in a little bit.